Can we talk about death?
Sure.
There were two 90-year-old women, Rose and Barb. And they had been lifelong friends. And when it became apparent that Rose was soon going to die, Barb started visiting her every day. And on one of those days, Barb said to Rose, "You know, we have been lifelong friends, and we have played softball together so many of those years, and it was so much fun. Can I ask of you a favor?" And Rose said, "Of course." And she said, "When you get to heaven, if there's any way possible, would you let me know if there's softball in heaven?" And Rose said, "As my dear friend, I commit to you that I will do everything in my power to let you know." Well, Rose passed soon thereafter. And the following Friday at midnight, Barb was woken by a blinding flash of light and a voice saying, "Barb, Barb." She sits straight up in bed and says, "Who is that? Who is it?" "Rose. It's Rose." "You can't be Rose. Rose died." "No, it's me, Rose." "Where are you?" Barb said. "I'm in heaven. And I have good news. And a little bit of bad news." And Barb said, "Give me the good news first." And Rose said, "I want you to know there is softball in heaven. And better yet, all of our buddies who died before us, they're here too. And better still, we're all young again. And it gets even better. It's always springtime. It never rains or snows." And she said, "And the best part of it all, we can play baseball all we want, and we never get tired." And Barb says, "That's wonderful. That exceeds my wildest dreams. What's the bad news?" And Rose says, "You're pitching Tuesday." And then we have this Peanuts cartoon. My snowman, Linus says, melted. I'll never see him again. And his sister Lucy, you must have been very close. And Linus, I was with him when he melted. Thank you. My father, as many of you know, and some of you don't, my father died 3 weeks ago this Sunday. And I left service immediately following church, and I went to Marymount Hospital where my stepmother Dottie was with him. And when I entered his room, Dottie was the only one there. And I went to his bedside. And I said, "Hi, Dad. I'm here." And he was breathing steadily on his own, but he was unconscious. He had been unconscious for most of that week. And I kissed him on his forehead. And I felt his warmth. Dottie had been there. I want to tell you a little bit about just a little bit about my dad, just a moment. My father, throughout the vast majority of his life, was an extremely social, very generous and gregarious man. When I was a young boy, and I would go downtown where his office was and join him for the day, and we'd go out to lunch, we'd be walking down Euclid Avenue, and he would know every third person on Euclid Avenue. They would all say, "Hi, Bob." And he would introduce me, and we'd have a meaningful conversation, because my father knew. He knew these people. He knew things about their lives. He connected. It took an awful long time to get to the restaurant. I got very hungry. But I learned a lot about my father and about life. Well, for the last several years, my father has not been a happy camper. He suffered what was diagnosed as extreme generalized anxiety, which means he was anxious about everything when? All the time. But he wanted to be useful. He didn't want to leave the house very often. He definitely didn't want to leave Medina, where they lived. He wanted to be useful to his wife. He wanted to be a contributor. And so Dottie assigned him certain tasks: to carry out the rubbish, to bring in the newspaper, to retrieve the mail, to empty the washer and dryer, fold the laundry. And my father took these tasks very seriously. This was what he did in these last years of his life. Very different from his earlier years. But this was now his to do. And so if he couldn't complete any of these tasks for whatever reason, he got very what? Very frustrated, very anxious, wondering if Dottie would be able to do it. Now, Dottie could have done any or all these things on her own with no trouble. But that wasn't the truth in my father's mind. Well, the Sunday before he passed was the last time that we had conversation. And it was a good one. And one of the last things my father said to me is this. Because Dottie had been there earlier in the day and she had gone home. And she was going to go take out the rubbish because Sunday was rubbish, and that's the night you put it out. He looked me right in the eyes and he said, "You know, Danny, it's good that Dottie is learning to do these things without me." Acceptance. That's what I felt. That's what I heard in his words. Acceptance and readiness for his death. Well, that following Sunday, the day he passed, as I said, I got to the hospital, Dottie was there. And she'd been there since the early morning with nothing to eat all day long. And we both looked at my father breathing steadily, and we came to common agreement that we didn't think he was going anywhere that day. And I said to her, "You need to eat. You need to take care of yourself." She said yes. She said, "I'll be gone about 45 minutes. I said, "That's fine, I'll be here." She left the room, and I sat down in a chair next to my father. And I looked at his face. It was so calm. It was so peaceful. You could just barely, I was amazed, barely see the faint outlines of the worry that had been so deeply and so long etched into his forehead. He was so serene. And I noticed his breathing was even easier. And 5 minutes passed. And I noticed no breath at all. Death makes everything stop. Certainly if it is yours. But also if it's the death of a loved one. All those major and minor plans and responsibilities that you have one moment, in the next moment, they're gone. They're meaningless, either temporarily or not at all. Everything changes. In that moment, your entire focus, your entire heart, the entirety of your mind, your whole being is present in that moment. And it's the only thing that matters. Is your relationship. It's not just your loved one, it's your relationship with your loved one. That's what matters. And that's where your entire focus is. And I know you know this, because we've all had these experiences. Everything changes. And I'm talking about in that moment.